Welcome to the world of unbelievable truths. Every day, we encounter events that seem ordinary. But the real question is, are they real or not? Figuring that out isn't as easy as it sounds, not even for you. Our minds often play tricks on us, making us believe in things that look real, but are nothing more than cleverly crafted lies. So, what about you? Do you think you're smart enough to uncover the truth? Really? You think it's that simple? Alright, let's make this fun. In this video, I'll share a few stories with you, and your job is to figure out which ones are real and which ones are just the product of our writer's imagination. And by the end of the video, we'll reveal the truth, what's real and what's not. But before we dive into the first story, here's something you should know. There's no way you're going to get all of them right. Think you're up for the challenge? If so, stick around and see if you can outsmart us. Do you remember the Titanic? Its collision with an iceberg caused one of the most devastating and tragic disasters in history. It didn't matter how massive the ship was. What mattered was the sheer power of the catastrophe. And we all know why the Titanic sank, which makes it easier to accept. But what if something similar happened, and no one could explain why? You might think the worst thing that can happen at sea is a ship sinking, but this time, it's different. This time, something far worse happens. Our first story is about a ship that, after setting sail, began sending strange, cryptic messages back to shore. And when the ship was finally found, it left everyone speechless. This is the story of death in the silence of the sea. In 1947, the calm waters of the Strait of Malacca carried the Dutch merchant ship, the SS Ourang Medan, on what seemed to be an uneventful journey. The crew went about their daily routines, the engines purred steadily, and the ship moved smoothly across the ocean, surrounded by nothing but endless waves. It was a peaceful, ordinary voyage, until it wasn't. The first sign of trouble came suddenly. A distress call, faint and filled with panic, broke the silence of the seas and sent shivers down the spines of anyone who heard it. All officers, including the captain, are dead, lying in the chart room and on the bridge. Possibly the whole crew is dead. The voice faltered, trembling with fear, and then returned, weaker this time, barely a whisper. I die, and then nothing. The eerie message was intercepted by nearby vessels, including the Silver Star, an American merchant ship. Alarmed by the chilling call, the Silver Star crew wasted no time and quickly set off to locate the source. It didn't take long before they spotted the SS Ourang Medan, eerily still, drifting silently on the calm waters. From a distance, the ship looked fine. There was no visible damage, no smoke, no sign of struggle, but as the Silver Star approached, a strange tension filled the air. The heavy silence that surrounded the SS Ourang Medan was almost unnatural, oppressive, as if the ship itself were warning them to stay away. When the boarding team from the Silver Star stepped onto the deck of the SS Ourang Medan, they were met with a scene so horrifying it would haunt them forever. Bodies were scattered across the deck, some slumped against walls, others lying face down, as though they had simply collapsed where they stood. Some were frozen mid-action, arms stretched out or gripping railings, as if they had been trying to escape something unseen. The faces were the most chilling part. Each one was twisted in terror, mouths frozen in silent screams, eyes wide and unseeing. The expressions were so vivid, so horrifying, that they seemed to tell a story of their final moments, moments filled with unimaginable fear. Even the ship's dog hadn't escaped the nightmare. Its lifeless body was found curled in a corner, teeth bared, locked in a defensive snarl as if it had faced a mortal threat. But here's what made the scene even stranger. There wasn't a single wound on any of the bodies. No blood, no bruises, no signs of struggle or violence. It was as if something invisible had swept through the ship in an instant, claiming every life without leaving a trace. The boarding team pushed forward, desperate for answers. They found the radio operator still at his post, slumped over the transmitter. The engine room was intact, the cargo appeared untouched, and the ship showed no signs of damage. The lack of evidence only deepened the mystery. What could have caused such a sudden and complete loss of life? There were no clear answers, only questions that seemed to multiply with every step. Then, Just as the Silver Star crew prepared to tow the SS Ourang Medan to safety, disaster struck. A fire erupted in the ship's cargo hold. It spread so quickly that the boarding team barely had time to retreat to their own ship. Moments later, the SS Ourang Medan was consumed by flames and exploded in a massive fireball, sinking beneath the waves and taking its dark secrets with it. Despite extensive investigations, the truth about what happened aboard the SS Ourang Medan has never been uncovered. Some experts have suggested that the ship was carrying hazardous chemicals that leaked and poisoned the crew. Others speculate that a buildup of methane gas, common in tropical waters, might have triggered a deadly reaction, suffocating the crew before sparking the fire that destroyed the ship. But the exact cause remains a mystery. The ship's abrupt destruction and the absence of surviving witnesses make it nearly impossible to piece together the events of that fateful day. Even now, decades later, the story of the SS Ourang Medan continues to captivate and haunt those who hear it. It stands as one of the most chilling and unexplained events in maritime history, a stark reminder of how vast and unforgiving the ocean can be, hiding its secrets in the depths forever. What's on your mind? I bet I know exactly what you're thinking right now. You're probably saying, there's no way this story is real. But then there's that little voice in the back of your head whispering, but there have been other shipwrecks just like this one. I know, you're torn. And as I said at the start of this video, uncovering the truth and solving mysteries is anything but easy. That was just the first story. Let's dive into the rest so you can really see how tricky this is. Stick around, because at the end of the video, we'll reveal whether this story about the ship was real or completely made up. But before we move on, let's make a deal. I'll challenge your detective skills to see just how sharp you are. And in return, you'll like this video and subscribe to our channel. Every video we post is packed with strange and fascinating stories, and it's your job to figure out which ones are real and which ones aren't. Alright, now let's get back to it. Have you ever walked past a mirror at home and felt like something was off? Like you saw something move in the reflection? Maybe a shadow or something darker? This time we're talking about Mona, a woman who committed murder years ago. But her victim's spirit refused to move on, haunting her relentlessly, no matter where she went. Our second story is about the other side of the mirror. Right now, Mona is a woman in her early 40s. But about 5 years ago, when she was around 35, she made a life-changing decision to kill another woman for reasons no one knows. But Mona's story, and the story of her victim, didn't end there. Years after the murder, Mona was walking toward her room one night. As she passed by a mirror in her house, she thought she saw something. A large, dark figure in the reflection. Startled, she quickly turned back to check the mirror, but nothing was there. Feeling relieved, she convinced herself it was just her imagination playing tricks on her. But a few nights later, the same thing happened again. This time, Mona couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. What made it even stranger was that this dark figure only appeared in one specific mirror in her home, the one located in a long hallway right outside Mona and her husband's bedroom. That mirror was special to them, and they valued it a lot. Then, one night, as Mona walked through the hallway, she clearly saw something horrifying. A woman, battered and bloodied, standing in the reflection. Mona froze. She turned around to look, but the woman wasn't there. When she looked back at the mirror, the figure was gone. Terrified, Mona finally told her husband about what she'd been seeing. Her husband, a kind and understanding man, believed her and tried to calm her down. He didn't dismiss her claims, and that gave Mona some comfort. Their house, a large and luxurious 2-story home, had the mirror placed upstairs near their bedroom. A few nights later, Mona was downstairs writing at her desk. Her husband, already upstairs in their room, called down to her, "Honey, that's enough for tonight. Don't overwork yourself, come to bed. We've got a busy day tomorrow." Mona, exhausted, decided to listen. As she passed the hallway mirror, her heart skipped a beat. There, in the reflection, she saw the woman again, her bloodied face and lifeless eyes staring directly at Mona, standing just behind her. Mona screamed and ran to her husband, trembling as she tried to explain, "I saw her again. It's her, the woman I killed that night. She won't leave me alone. Please, believe me, I'm not lying." Worried, her husband took her to see a psychologist, but they didn't tell the psychologist the full truth. They didn't mention the murder or the fact that the woman in the mirror was the same one Mona had killed. Instead, they simply described what Mona had been seeing: a terrifying woman appearing in a specific mirror in their house. As expected, the psychologist told them what they already knew. Mona was under a lot of stress, and what she was seeing was just her imagination. The psychologist insisted there was no need to worry, but no matter how much Mona and her husband tried to convince him that they weren't imagining things, he refused to believe them. Life became unbearable for Mona. She was too scared to even enter her own bedroom, let alone walk past the hallway mirror. One evening, Mona was home alone when her husband called. He said, "Hey sweetheart, I'm going to be working late tonight. Don't wait up for me. Just eat dinner and get some rest." Mona, clearly terrified, didn't say much. Her husband, noticing her fear, added, "If you're scared or don't want to be alone, just say the word and I'll come home right now." But Mona, trying to act brave, replied, "No, don't worry about me. I'm fine. Just focus on your work." Before hanging up, her husband reminded her, "All right, just make sure to lock all the windows, pull the curtains, and cover that mirror with a cloth before you go to bed." Mona followed his instructions and eventually went to bed, pulling the blanket over her head to hide her fear. That night, a storm raged outside, with loud thunder and lightning lighting up the sky. Suddenly, the sound of breaking glass jolted Mona awake. Terrified, she pulled the blanket down and saw that one of the bedroom windows had shattered. Trembling, she cautiously stepped out of bed and into the hallway. But before she could react, a man dressed in black grabbed her by the neck and tried to strangle her. Mona struggled, but she couldn't break free. And then she saw it. In the mirror, the woman appeared again. But this time, something was different. Mona wasn't the only one who could see her. The intruder saw the woman too. The sight of her, bloodied, terrifying, and unrelenting, shook the man to his core. Panicking, he let go of Mona and ran for his life. It was unbelievable. The woman Mona had killed years ago had appeared in the mirror and saved her life. That same woman whose presence had haunted Mona for so long scared off the man who had broken into their home. And here's the strangest part. After that night, the woman never appeared in the mirror again. She was gone, and Mona was finally free. So, what do you think? Do you believe this story? Could a woman who was murdered come back years later, not to haunt, but to save her killer? Or is this just another fabricated tale designed to mess with your head? Stay with us until the end of the video, where we'll reveal whether this story was real or just a figment of imagination. Have you ever lost something? It's probably happened to you before. You lose something, search the entire house but still can't find it. Then, out of nowhere, the thing you were looking for shows up in the most obvious spot, almost like someone placed it there on purpose. That's the good side of losing something. But the bad side, when something disappears and never shows up again. Our next story is about a woman walking down a quiet street when something suddenly vanishes right in front of her eyes. This is the story of the Invisible Hunter. In the summer of 1978, the quiet town of Woodland Hills, California, was shaken to its core by an event so strange and unsettling that it remains one of the most baffling mysteries in its history. Nestled in a peaceful valley, the town was known for its tranquil streets and close-knit community. But what happened to 25-year-old Mary Lou Johnson on that moonlit night shattered its sense of safety, leaving behind unanswered questions that linger to this day. Mary Lou Johnson was a single mother, deeply loved by her friends and neighbors for her kind heart and unshakable determination. She worked tirelessly to support her young son, balancing her responsibilities with cherished moments of laughter and joy among her closest friends. On that fateful night, she'd been invited to a casual gathering at a friend's house, a chance to unwind after a long week. The evening was unremarkable, filled with lighthearted conversations and laughter. At around 2 a.m., Mary Lou decided it was time to head home. She said her goodbyes, thanked her hosts, and stepped out into the quiet night. The moon hung high in the sky, casting its soft glow over the empty streets. Her house was only a short walk away, just a few blocks. Woodland Hills was considered a safe place, and late-night walks were nothing out of the ordinary. Mary Lou began her walk home, her footsteps echoing softly on the pavement as she moved through the familiar neighborhood. Several neighbors saw her passing by, briefly illuminated under the glow of streetlights before disappearing into the shadows. She seemed calm and focused, intent on getting home. But then, something unthinkable happened. Just moments after being seen, Mary Lou vanished. 1 second, she was there, and the next, she was gone. No sound, no struggle, nothing. It was as if she had simply evaporated into the night. The neighbors who had seen her were stunned. They called out to her, but there was no response. Mary Lou had disappeared without a trace. Her mother, waiting at home, grew worried when Mary Lou didn't arrive. She called her daughter's friends, hoping she might still be at the party, but no one had seen her since she left. Panic set in, and she contacted the police. Officers were dispatched immediately, and the search for Mary Lou began. Search teams combed the area, questioning neighbors and retracing her steps. Police scoured the streets, alleyways, and nearby wooded areas, but they found nothing. No personal belongings, no evidence, no clues, nothing to suggest what had happened to her. It was as though the night had swallowed her whole. One witness came forward with a strange account. He claimed that as Mary Lou passed his house, he saw a fleeting shadow near her, a dark, shapeless figure that moved unnaturally. He described it as a presence rather than a person or an animal. Although he couldn't explain what he saw, he said it filled him with an eerie, almost otherworldly feeling. This account, though vague, added an unsettling layer to the mystery. As days turned into weeks, the search for Mary Lou intensified. Volunteers joined in, and local news outlets covered the case extensively. But despite the community's determination, no leads emerged. There were no witnesses to her disappearance, no surveillance footage, and no evidence of foul play or an accident. The case took a darker turn as rumors began to spread. Some whispered about supernatural forces, speculating that Mary Lou might have been pulled into another dimension or taken by a ghostly presence. Others suggested she could have been the victim of a secretive abduction by an unknown group. The complete lack of evidence only fueled these theories, leaving the truth even more elusive. Months turned into years, and the case grew cold. Police eventually admitted they had no answers and no new direction for further investigation. Mary Lou's mother, devastated by her disappearance, refused to give up hope. She clung to the belief that one day her daughter would return. Decades later, the story of Mary Lou Johnson continues to captivate and terrify those who hear it. Some locals claim to have felt strange sensations or seen unexplained shadows near the area where she disappeared. Others believe that the truth of what happened to Mary Lou lies beyond human understanding. Whatever the explanation, the disappearance of Mary Lou Johnson remains one of the most haunting mysteries of modern history, a chilling reminder that even in the most ordinary places, extraordinary and unexplainable events can happen, leaving behind only questions and whispers of the unknown. If we examine the disappearance of Mary Lou Johnson scientifically, there's no explanation for what happened to her. But as you know, sometimes things happen in life that go beyond logic and understanding. These are often referred to as the supernatural. However, there's another possibility. What if this story was made up to trick you? The stories in this episode of our program have come to an end. And now it's time to lift the veil of mystery and reveal which ones were real and which were fabricated. But before we do that, let's quickly recap the stories. Story number 1. Death in the Silence of the Sea. In 1947, the Dutch merchant ship SS Ourang Medan was traveling through the Strait of Malacca. During its journey, a chilling distress call was sent out. A crew member, clearly terrified, reported the deaths of everyone on board and claimed he too was about to die. Using the signal, rescuers located the ship and sent a team to investigate. Upon arrival, they found the entire crew lifeless, with their bodies frozen in place. Their mouths and eyes were wide open, as if staring at something horrifying in their final moments. Shortly after, the ship's engines caught fire, and the vessel sank, taking its secrets with it. The mystery of the SS Ourang Medan remains unsolved, though its story has endured. Story number 2. The Other Side of the Mirror. Mona, at age 35, killed a woman. But this wasn't the end of her story. Every time Mona passed a specific mirror in her home, she saw the woman she had killed, but in a terrifying form. This continued until one night when her husband had to work late. Alone and afraid, Mona locked all the doors and windows before going to bed. In the middle of the night, she heard the sound of breaking glass. Terrified, she discovered her bedroom window had been shattered. As she stepped into the hallway, a man with a knife tried to attack her. But then, the woman from the mirror appeared. The sight of her scared the intruder so much that he fled. Strangely enough, the woman Mona had killed ended up saving her life. And after that night, she never appeared in the mirror again. Story number 3, The Invisible Hunter. Mary Lou Johnson, a 25-year-old single mother, vanished under mysterious circumstances. She was last seen at a party and decided to take a walk outside to get some fresh air. Neighbors reported seeing her walking down the street when, suddenly, she disappeared without a trace. Police investigations yielded no results. The only clue came from a witness who claimed to have seen a shadowy figure moving close to Mary Lou before she vanished. Both the shadow and Mary Lou were never seen again. Now you have 10 seconds to decide which story is real and which is fake. Don't look at the comments. They might spoil the answers for you. What do you think about death in silence? Do you believe it's real just because events like the Titanic happened? If so, you've been tricked. This story was made up. What about the other side of the mirror? You might think it's impossible for a murdered woman to appear in a mirror and show herself to people, right? Well, you're wrong. This story is real. Finally, we come to the invisible hunter. Maybe you're thinking this story was made up to mess with your head, but you're wrong again. This story is real too. Now it's time to check the comments and see how other viewers guessed. Don't forget to let us know if you guessed correctly or not. We're excited to hear from you. The segment you just watched was episode 5 of season 1 of our program. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. If you're eager to challenge yourself further and test your ability to figure out whether our stories are real or not, make sure to check out the rest of our videos. And here's some exciting news. If you have a strange and unbelievable story from your own life and want us to feature it in one of our upcoming videos, share the full details of your story in the comments below. If you have any photos, videos, or recordings that could serve as evidence, you can send them to the Telegram ID displayed on your screen. Of course, if you don't have any supporting materials, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure to explain your story thoroughly in the comments. We can't wait to hear your incredible tales.